Be careful how reliant you become on AI. Workday, a latest development in the Workday case. If you weren't aware, they've been, in court battling some legal battles because they have what's called, what is it called? They've got a thing in work. If you don't know what Workday is, it's a HR system. It's basically what, I don't know what percentage, a large majority of companies use for all of their candidate tracking, all your employee data. If you go in and do your benefits and look up HR policies and stuff, there's a good chance if you're at a company, you're going into Workday when you do it. Anyway, they had implemented a functionality called the hired score. It was like this functionality in Workday they added to recruiting that allowed you to assign a match of someone to jobs. And so great, right? Sounds wonderful. Let AI from Workday tell us whether these people are going to be a good match for these jobs. Well, yeah, there are laws in place that prevent discrimination and require companies to be ethical in their hiring practices. And there were some questions about whether the way the AI was trained and the way it was being used was actually in compliance with these laws. So Workday, as the provider of this technology, found themselves in court. Well, that has continued. And needless to say, the findings are that, yeah, it's not objective and it's highly biased, which I won't say this, but I think that may still be coming as a surprise to people that, wait, what? This AI is actually not hiring people based on their qualifications and other things. It's discriminating based on attributes that are illegal to discriminate against. Surprise, surprise, that AI might do something like that. So anyway, Workday's in some hot water. Well, it recently got a little bit bigger in that now the court's ordering, they want a full list of every employer who has ever enabled and used the higher score by AI. So this is a pretty interesting development. And when I mentioned this whole case kind of going, hitting in the news feed recently, I said I wanted to follow this because, first of all, one, this is very much going to determine, this isn't going to be the only thing. But I have a fair amount of legal friends, and we talk about the fact there's not a lot of legal precedent right now of when AI does something, who's really at fault? Who gets held accountable for it? Is it the AI? Is it the AI company? Is it the developers that made it? Is it the company that chose to use? Who does the axe fall on? And there's not a lot of answers to that at this point. So cases like this matter a lot because where it goes will then be used as reference points by judges making determinations, by juries, that evaluate how they feel about it, by lawyers and legal teams in terms of what they can and can't press, all this stuff. So the fact that not only is Workday finding themselves behind the gun and under the axe for what their hired score was doing and how it worked, now the judge is saying, we want to know all the companies that also use this, which it's still early. So what they're going to do with that, it's hard to say. But the reason I wanted to bring attention to this, and I wrote about it earlier this week on LinkedIn, is the fact that one of the biggest dangers right now as it relates to AI is we're still in this early stage where many people don't think about the implications of it, or it feels like it's creating something from nothing. I wrote a post earlier this week about the fact that we like to think it's like creating productivity. It's making things from nothing, and it's not. It's transferring it. It's repurposing it. It's moving things around, but nothing is actually being created. And so the same thing is true when it comes to accountability. AI is not magically making accountability for bad things go away. It's not becoming the sacrificial lamb or scapegoat for accountability. And the courts are upholding that, which was my hope. Because, boy, I'll tell you right now, if the courts just start saying, hey, we can just blame AI, well, AI can't do anything. So it's basically like saying nobody's responsibility. So I've been really trying to watch where this goes. And this is an interesting development, but it's really interesting in that many times this just ends up staying in the AI company field. And so what this does is it tends to build this perception that as a company, you can just pick whatever software, and if things blow up, you just kind of like let the software company take the fall. It's for them to deal. So the judge ordering the list of all the companies, this is a new precedent. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples of this, but this is a big one because where this goes is going to have major implications. And for those of you who watch or listen and are in the role of making decisions about this, I would encourage you to take this move very seriously. And if you are not taking the time to examine, hey, how are we thinking about AI? Are we making sure we're thinking through the implications? Have we documented that? Have we actually talked through different scenario planning and things like that? Have we, weighed decisions before we move forward with things? If you're just skipping those steps, you very much could find yourself under the axe. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with this, but best case scenario is like, I don't know, companies get outed for being on this list. It gets leaked, and all of a sudden, all the companies that did it, and whether they actually had good practices or not, I don't even know that that's a best case scenario. But right, and then all of a sudden, you're like publicly crucified for, and accused of things that maybe you didn't put a ton of weight on this higher score, but people won't care. Once they find out you're a company that used Workday's hired score AI, people are just going to fill in all the blanks with whatever. But in realistic terms, it is possible that the courts may say, okay, well, we're now going to do an investigation into the companies. We're going to order that these companies be investigated to see, did they do the due diligence, or did they just get lazy and just trust AI to pick their candidates for them? And that could cause an absolute nightmare, because if that starts happening, oh boy, the precedent that's going to set, and CIOs, CTOs, C-suite execs everywhere are going to be freaking out, because I know how much of this decision making is done just based on, the companies are the ones responsible for it. They're telling us it'll be fine. Like, let's just move forward with it. So while this is a bit unsettling for a lot of people, and if you're hearing this going, we kind of like carelessly implemented AI, you may want to go back and rethink that and re-examine it. But I think this is actually a really good thing. And the reason I think it's a really good thing is that accountability sounds terrible when you're on the receiving end of it after you've made some really stupid mistakes. Like, look, I've been on that side of it. It's not fun. Being held accountable when you messed up is not fun. So I'm not saying you should love it and enjoy it, but accountability is a really good thing because it helps everybody succeed. And so my hope is that as this continues to move forward, not only people who were bad actors and abusing AI in their hiring practices are held accountable for it, but I also hope it starts to set the precedent with people that, hey, we can't just throw caution to the wind and trust AI will take the fall, or the AI companies will take the fall if it blows up in our face. Okay. And even if, given what I talked about last week with kind of the US AI action plan seeming to move us away from accountability as it relates to AI, I still am going to advocate that don't ride that cultural wave, because I was watching a thing with my oldest son last night about the biggest cash scam. This guy from Malaysia ran it. And what was interesting is from the beginning, I told my son, I go, you just wait. Everything he's doing is banking on this right here. And the second that changes, his whole world's going to fall apart. And sure enough, that's exactly how it played out. And so I know right now the cultural tides are moving towards, well, we're not going to worry about accountability. Well, we're not going to worry about safety. We're not going to worry about what things might actually go sideways with this. We'll figure that out later. I would plead with you not to get sucked into that current, because at some point the tides are going to change. And if you get sucked out with that current and the tides suddenly shift, you're going to find yourself dragged to the bottom of the ocean, and nobody's going to care that the tides were moving that way at the time you were doing it. So let's say this doesn't go the way that I'm, guessing, which is, some real accountable. Let's say the US just kind of comes in and goes, it's not their fault. Like, whatever, just move on. And like, let's not worry about the laws and precedents we've set for decades to make sure hiring is fair. Is it possible that could happen? Tragically, I think yes. One of my favorite YouTubers is CoffeeZilla, and his current brand right now, his merch tagline is "Crime is legal." And in some ways, when you look around, you're like, yeah, it kind of feels like that right now. Like things that should be wrong and against the law, it's just like, well, as AI is doing it, who cares? And so, but that it always catches up with you. So I am just going to plead, like, don't get sucked into those tides. And if you did get sucked into those tides a bit, you can still prevent yourself from getting sucked further out by going, hey, like, let's go back and like, let's actually reevaluate that. And you know what? We can even frame that as a, look, we kind of trusted it. We wanted to re-examine how it was doing. And so we did an objective analysis and we came back and we made some adjustments. That kind of stuff is going to prevent you from getting completely sucked out to sea. And so let this be a warning call, a sign to say, hey, like, chill. Like, if you are going down this path, slow down. If you need help, this is what I do. You can call me, and it might not be me. Maybe I'll pass you off to somebody else who's more relevant, or, maybe you don't like my personality. That's fine too. But my goal would be to want to connect you with somebody who can help you, because I don't want to see anybody dragged to the bottom of the ocean because they thought, hey, there's going to be no consequences for this. Because not only do you get dragged to the bottom of the ocean, good grief, as the tides go out, you drag a bunch of people to the bottom of the ocean. And then when they shift and you get sucked back in, everybody gets dragged to the bottom of the ocean. And I just don't want to see that. And this is an indicator that it's another reminder, accountability will come at some point. AI doesn't make accountability go away. It just shifts it around and maybe stalls it.